Ashley's nails dug into my wrist as she shoved me so hard I hit the banister. The pain shot through my arm, but worse was the look on her face. Cold. Triumphant. Go away, Eleanor. This isn't your home anymore. You're just taking up space. My heart lurched as Ryan, my only son, stood behind her in the hallway with his arms crossed. He didn't reach for me, didn't defend me, he only lowered his head like a child caught stealing cookies. Except this wasn't cookies. This was my life. They wanted the house. That much was obvious now. Ashley, with her perfect hair and her smug little smile, had been hinting for months, dropping words like legacy and future. And Ryan, my Ryan, had begun repeating her phrases until they no longer sounded like him at all. It was Ashley's voice coming out of his mouth. I knew then that if I didn't act, I'd lose more than walls and furniture. I'd lose the last piece of myself. So I did the unthinkable. I sold it. I sold the house that had been my anchor for 37 years. But what came after, the mysterious phone calls that slipped into my nights, the voices that weren't meant for me, made me realize their betrayal wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. And this time, they would learn what happens when a mother fights back. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from, because you're about to hear how I turned betrayal into a weapon. The morning it all truly began, sunlight spilled across my kitchen table, illuminating the scratches and dents left from decades of meals, homework, and late-night talks with my husband James. I was in my faded robe, sipping coffee from a chipped mug, when Ashley came striding in like she already owned the place. Her heels clicked on the tile, her silk blouse catching the light. She looked at me not like a mother-in-law, but like a squatter she needed to evict. "This house is too much for you, Eleanor," she said, her lips curling in that smile that never reached her eyes. "Don't you think it's selfish, rattling around in here while Ryan and I dream of starting a family? Imagine what we could do with this space." Selfish. That word stung like a slap harder than the one she had given me the night before. My hand shook, but I set the mug down gently and met her gaze. "Selfish is taking something that doesn't belong to you," I said softly. Ryan walked in just then, still tying his tie, hair unkempt. He didn't even look at me. He just sighed and muttered, "Maybe it's time, Mom. Think about it. You'd be happier in a condo. Closer to people your age." I wanted to scream. Instead, I excused myself, climbed the stairs, and opened James's old dresser. For years, I'd left that top drawer untouched. Inside was a manila envelope, his steady handwriting across it, "For when you're ready." I unfolded the papers with trembling hands. James had transferred the house fully into my name, airtight, irrevocable. Even dead, he was protecting me. Tears filled my eyes, but behind the tears came fire. That evening, I called Claire, a realtor I trusted from church. My voice shook, but my words were firm. "Sell the house. Quickly. And don't tell my son or his wife." Within days, buyers lined up. Ashley and Ryan were too busy flipping through magazines, fantasizing about granite countertops and marble bathrooms, to notice. At night, I'd hear them whispering in the guest room, Ashley's voice hissing about how soon everything would be theirs. I kept my silence. Every signature I placed in Claire's office was a nail in the coffin of their scheme. The day the sale closed, I walked through each room one last time. The apple tree outside was in bloom, white petals drifting like snow. I whispered goodbye to James, to the life we had built, and placed 2 envelopes on the kitchen counter, one with the keys for the buyers, and one addressed to my son and his wife. Inside it read only, "The house was never yours." I walked out with nothing but a suitcase and my pride. For a few days, there was silence. No angry knocks, no shouting. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but when I picked up, I froze. "Did she sign it yet?" Ashley's sharp voice hissed through the line. "She can't hold out forever." Ryan's muffled reply followed, "Relax. Once it's official, the place is ours. She won't last long without money." Click. The call ended. My blood ran cold. They didn't know. They thought I was still clinging, that I was about to crumble. The rug had already been pulled from under them, and they hadn't even noticed. 2 nights later, another call. This time at midnight. Ashley again, her tone giddy. "Once she's out, we'll flip it." My cousin's contractor says we can clear 100 grand before Christmas. Flip the place. Profit off my memories, my marriage, my blood and sweat. I gripped the receiver so tight my knuckles whitened. They weren't just greedy, they were rabid. And their voices, their words, were falling straight into my lap like gifts. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table of my little rental, staring at the dark window. Betrayal had gutted me, but now I felt something new, clarity. A plan was forming, sharper than any knife. Because the calls weren't meant for me, but I was listening. And soon, the world would be too. The phone rang again the following morning while I was buttering toast in my small rental kitchen. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut told me to answer. The second I picked up, I knew it wasn't for me. Ashley's voice burst through, hushed but sharp. Don't worry, Ryan. Once the deed's in our hands, she won't have a say. My cousin already lined up buyers. Easy money. We'll move fast, before she even knows what hit her. I nearly dropped the phone. My hands trembled so violently the toast slid from the plate onto the linoleum floor. They were talking about me like I was already gone. Like I was a problem they had solved. The irony almost made me laugh. They didn't even realize the house was no longer mine to give. They thought they were orchestrating a clever heist when, in truth, they were grasping at smoke. But the calls didn't stop. That night, the phone rang again, this time around 11. Ashley again, her tone sugary now. Oh Ryan, once we flip it, we'll finally get out of debt. We can finally live the life we deserve. Your mother's holding us back, but not for long. Deserve. That word twisted in my chest like a knife. How easily greed turned family into strangers. I didn't hang up. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, memorizing every word. Each call was proof, though they didn't know it. Proof that their betrayal wasn't just careless, it was calculated. The next morning, I walked to the corner cafe and pulled out a small notepad. I wrote down every detail I remembered from the calls, times, dates, words. Then I dialed Claire, the realtor who had helped me sell the house. She answered quickly. Eleanor, is everything all right? I lowered my voice. I think they're planning more than just taking the house. They keep calling, thinking I haven't sold it yet. I need help. Claire's tone turned serious. Keep documenting everything. Record the calls if you can. This is evidence. If they're scheming to commit fraud, you'll want every word on your side. Her calm steadied me. For the first time in days, I felt like I wasn't entirely alone. That evening, I dug through James's old belongings and found a small handheld recorder he used years ago for work meetings. My hands shook as I slid new batteries inside. The next time the phone rang, I would be ready. It didn't take long. 2 nights later, at nearly 1 in the morning, the phone jolted me awake. I fumbled for the receiver, pressed record, and held my breath. Ryan's voice this time. Ashley, don't say that. She'll know. Ashley's laugh followed, sharp and mocking. She's too old to figure it out. We'll make her sign. We'll tell her it's for taxes, or medical bills. By the time she realizes, it'll be done. Tears stung my eyes as I sat in the dark, listening to my son conspire against me like a stranger. My own flesh and blood. But through the tears came resolve. Their greed was digging them into a grave, and I was the one collecting the shovels. The following Sunday, I invited Ruth, my older sister, over for tea. Ruth had always been the strong one, fiery and blunt. Her hair was a crown of red fading into silver, her laugh booming enough to fill a room. She took one look at me and frowned. What's wrong, Eleanor? You look like you haven't slept in weeks. I poured her tea, sliding the recorder across the table. Listen. Her smile faded as the voices of Ryan and Ashley filled the kitchen. When the recording ended, she slammed her hand down so hard the cups rattled. Those snakes. To plot against you, against their own mother? Eleanor, this can't stand. I nodded slowly. I know. That's why I need your help. They think I'm weak. They think I've already lost. But they don't realize the fight isn't over. I want them exposed. Not just to me. To everyone. Ruth's eyes gleamed with the fire I remembered from our childhood. Then we'll expose them. Whatever you need, I'm with you. Over the next week, Ruth and I worked quietly. She introduced me to Daniel, her grandson, a thoughtful 30-year-old who worked in IT. He showed me how to connect the recorder to my computer, how to save each file, how to make backups. This way, he said, if they try to deny it, you'll have proof ready to play. Proof. That word became my anchor. But as prepared as I was becoming, the calls kept coming, and they grew darker. One night, Ashley's voice slipped into something almost sinister. If she won't sign, we'll scare her. Make her think she can't handle it anymore. Trust me, Ryan, she'll fold. Everyone breaks. Everyone breaks. I gripped the receiver so tightly I thought it might snap. But I didn't break. I wrote it down, word for word, and added it to my growing collection. By the end of the week, I had a folder thick with notes, recordings, and transcripts. Every call was another stone in the wall I was building against them. And with Ruth and Daniel by my side, I felt the strength of family again, the real kind, not the kind poisoned by greed. Still, I knew I couldn't confront Ryan and Ashley yet. If I revealed my hand too soon, they'd twist it, make me out to be delusional, an old woman losing her grip. I had to wait. I had to let them trap themselves deeper, until even they couldn't deny it. That chance came sooner than I expected. Late one Friday night, the phone rang again. I pressed record. Ryan's voice came through, tight and nervous. What if she finds out? What if she's smarter than we think? Ashley's laugh was cold, cruel. Smarter? Don't make me laugh. She's a relic. She doesn't have the strength to fight us. By Christmas, she'll be gone, and everything will finally be ours. I clicked the recorder off and sat in silence, the weight of their words pressing into me. But beneath that weight was steel. They thought I was gone already. They thought I was weak, a relic, a shadow of myself. But they had no idea that every cruel word, every greedy plan, was stitching my resolve tighter. They weren't just writing me out of my own life. They were writing their own downfall. And soon, I would hand them the pen and let them sign their own ruin. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror brushing my silver hair into its usual bun, my cardigan buttoned neatly over a cream blouse. My reflection stared back at me, tired but steady. They thought I was frail. They thought I was finished. Good. That would be my disguise. I decided to play along. If Ryan and Ashley believed I was breaking, they would reveal more, push harder, dig themselves into a hole I could bury them in. I called Ryan that afternoon. My voice trembled just enough. Ryan, honey, maybe you're right. Maybe the house is too much. I've been so tired lately. Perhaps I should let you and Ashley take over. Can we talk soon? There was a pause, then Ashley's sharp voice in the background. Ryan cleared his throat. Of course, Mom. We'll come by this weekend. It's better we get everything settled now. The triumph in his voice made my stomach twist, but I forced a weak-sounding laugh. Yes. Settled. After I hung up, I phoned Ruth immediately. They're coming. Saturday night. Bring Daniel. But don't say a word until I give the signal. Ruth's reply was quick and firm. We'll be there. That Saturday, I baked a peach cobbler, just like James used to love, the smell filling the little rental house. My hands trembled as I set the table, but not from fear, from anticipation. Every plate, every cup, was part of the stage I was setting. At 6 sharp, they arrived. Ashley swept in first, her perfume thick, her smile syrupy. She wore a new red dress that clung like armor, her heels clicking against the hardwood. Ryan followed, looking uneasy but trying to appear confident. They didn't notice Ruth and Daniel at first, sitting quietly in the living room. When they did, Ashley's smile faltered. Oh, company, she said flatly. My family, I replied, my tone calm. I wanted witnesses. I get confused sometimes, you know. Best to have people here who can help me remember. Ashley's eyes flickered, but she recovered quickly, forcing a laugh. Of course. That's smart. We sat at the table. I let them eat first, the silence thick. Then Ryan slid a folder across to me. Mom, these are just some papers, basic stuff. It'll simplify everything. You sign, and we'll handle the rest. You won't have to worry anymore. Ashley chimed in sweetly. Think of it as freedom, Eleanor. You've carried this burden long enough. Let us take care of things. Her voice was honey, but her eyes glittered with hunger. I picked up the pen, my hand shaking deliberately. So this means, the house, the accounts, everything would be yours? Ashley leaned forward, eager. Yes. And you'll be comfortable, we promise. You'll have what you need. That was my moment. I set the pen down and reached beneath the lace table runner. The small recorder clicked, and suddenly their own voices filled the room. Don't worry, Ryan. Once the deed's in our hands, she won't have a say. She's too old to figure it out. We'll make her sign. By Christmas she'll be gone, and everything will finally be ours. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ashley's face went white, her mouth falling open. Ryan's hands clenched into fists, his jaw tightening. Ruth gasped, her hand covering her chest. Daniel rose slightly from his chair, his face hard. I looked straight at my son, my voice calm and cutting. This is what you think of me? That I'm weak? That I won't fight back? Ryan stammered, Mom, wait, you don't understand. We didn't mean. Ruth snapped, her eyes blazing. It's all right here, Ryan. Your own words. Your wife's voice plotting against your mother. Ashley scrambled for the folder, but Daniel snatched it before she could touch it. He flipped it open, his brows furrowing. These aren't just forms. These are transfer papers. You were going to take everything. The mask slipped from Ashley's face. Her voice turned sharp, cold. She doesn't need it. She's wasting it all on herself while we drown in bills. We deserve this. Her words cracked the air like a whip. Ryan buried his face in his hands, but he didn't deny it. He couldn't. I rose from my chair slowly, my hands steady now. The house is already gone. Sold. You'll get nothing. And soon, everyone will know what you tried to do. Ashley's eyes widened. Sold? What do you mean, sold? I allowed myself the faintest smile. You were too busy dreaming about chandeliers and contractors to notice. It's no longer mine. It never was yours. And now all that's left for you is the truth. Silence crushed the room. Ruth's breathing was heavy, Daniel's jaw tight. Ashley sat frozen, her dreams shattering in her eyes. Ryan looked smaller than I had ever seen him. But I wasn't done. Exposure was only the beginning. I needed to take everything they had built on lies and grind it into dust. That night, after they stormed out in shame, I sat at the table with Ruth and Daniel. The recorder lay between us, glowing faintly. Ruth touched my hand. What will you do now? I lifted my chin, my voice steady. They wanted me gone. They wanted me erased. But I'm still here. And now, I'll make sure their greed destroys them, not me. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Then let's finish it. Let's make sure they can't crawl back from this. The fire inside me, banked for weeks, flared bright. The time for patience was over. It was time for the strike. They came to the community hall expecting a quiet Saturday luncheon and a quick signature. They never expected a stage. The betrayal started the moment Ashley stood at my sink and laughed at the idea I could manage on my own. The greedy motive was plain: cash the house, flip it, vanish the past. The shocking twist that promised revenge came when I invited the neighborhood association to a tea with Eleanor, and made sure the people who mattered would be in the room. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. When Claire booked the afternoon room at the old community center, I made the reservation under a different name, just some little civic group meeting, nothing to raise suspicion. The center was familiar: high ceilings, long windows, faded banners for past bake sales and charity drives. It smelled like lemon polish and old newspapers. I asked Ruth and Daniel to arrive early. I asked Claire to bring copies of the sale paperwork and the files she'd quietly gathered. I told no one else anything beyond an open invitation to neighbors and friends. By noon the room hummed with small talk. Retirees in cardigans debated recipes. A couple of young moms wrangled toddlers. The folding chairs were almost full. I sat at the head of the long table, my cardigan buttoned, my hands folded, the small recorder hidden on the lace runner like a secret talisman. It looked like a normal gathering. It was anything but. Ryan and Ashley arrived late, as if they had a right to entrance. Ashley's smile was too bright, rehearsed. Ryan glanced around nervously, the shame of the last confrontation still shadowing his eyes. They greeted a few people and then took their seats at the other end of the table, confident. I saw the familiar twitch in Ashley's jaw, the same one that tightened whenever a new vanity project was mentioned. I started with small talk. I thought it'd be nice to get everyone together, I said, my voice warm. We don't have many gatherings these days. People nodded, the room settling. The cake Ruth had baked sat in a glass dome. The tea was poured. I let them relax. A trap works best when the prey thinks the net is simply a new rug. Then I asked Claire to speak. Claire stood, looked over at the assembled faces, and said, Eleanor asked me to speak today about protecting assets and the dangers of undue influence. She kept her voice steady, like a teacher guiding a class. It's a delicate subject, especially when family members start pressuring older relatives to sign documents for their own benefit. Heads turned. Murmurs rippled. Ashley's face went thin. Ryan's fingers tightened on his napkin. I could almost hear their thoughts. What is she doing? Who did she bring? Which of our friends will choose a side? Claire walked to the front with a stack of envelopes. We're going to talk about signs of coercion, she continued. And as part of that, Eleanor has asked that we listen to something. She held up a small speaker. I felt my heart beat in my throat, but my hands were calm now. The speaker crackled. Then their voices filled the hall, Ryan's hurried tones, Ashley's clipped laughter, the words they had thought were private. We'll make her sign, Ashley purred. She won't last much longer. Flip the place, cash out, we'll be set. Those phrases landed like stones. Conversation stuttered into silence. Some people shifted in their seats. Others had the blank look of those who don't want to believe a neighbor could do such a thing. Ashley stood as if to protest, but Claire raised a paper in her hand. We have the recorded calls, she said plainly. We have dates and times. We also have copies of transfer forms your family brought, Ms. Lane. Her eyes found Ryan and held him. We want to show you what coercive behavior looks like. We'll walk through the facts. Grace from down the street, a retired nurse who'd once babysat Ryan, stood up first. My goodness, she whispered. I thought they were always so polite. A few heads nodded, a woman near the window dabbed at her eyes. Rumors spread like spilled tea. Ashley's composure cracked. She blurted something about invasion of privacy, about manipulation. Ryan tried to stand, voice shaking, to apologize, to insist it was all a misunderstanding. But the room had shifted. Once a community's pattern of courtesy broke, it didn't easily stitch back. Claire didn't rush. She laid out the timeline, the dates of the calls, the content transcribed, the offers Ryan and Ashley had made to help, while planning to strip me of my legal control. She had done her homework. She presented the sale contract I'd signed and notarized, showing the transfer out of my name and the protections I'd put in place. If legal force was what they intended, Claire had already closed that door. Daniel stood up then. He wasn't loud, but when he spoke, everyone listened. I work in IT. I helped my aunt back up the recordings and create a secure file. If anyone doubts their authenticity, we can verify them. But it's not just about the legal papers. It's about trust. Eleanor built this town here with her kindness. You don't do that and then try to poison her last years. People murmured agreement. A neighbor whose child had been helped by a scholarship from a fund my husband and I used to support nodded solemnly. She's always been our backbone, the neighbor said. You can't treat her like this. I could see Ashley's face go from anger to panic. Her mouth worked, searching for a plan, but her mind had been caught mid-scheme. Ryan's shoulders slumped. He looked younger than his 45 years. Shame does that. It rips the veneer and leaves the rawness. The meeting couldn't be allowed to devolve into a shouting match. I didn't want to humiliate them in gossip. I wanted safety, clarity, and protection. So Claire, Ruth, and I had another card. Claire walked over to a small table at the side and pulled out a thick envelope. These files are being sent to 2 places now, she said. One is the Elder Protection Unit at the County Attorney's Office. The other is a civil attorney who handles elder coercion cases. We will also make them public if necessary. Gasps. I watched faces turn. People exchanged glances that spelled a verdict. There is power in witnesses. There is more power in law. Ashley tried to speak again, more pleading now. Eleanor, please, this is our life. We're struggling. Her practiced voice was softer, but the words truthfully laid bare only her greed. The room heard it as confession. Ruth stepped forward, furious now but composed. There is struggling, and there is stealing. You chose the latter. Her hand found mine across the table. Strength, real and steady, flowed through me. After an hour of questions and quiet conversations, the hall slowly emptied. A few neighbors hugged me. Some offered to drive me to the courthouse if I ever needed to go. Some promised to keep an eye on things. Claire collected the remaining copies of the recordings. Daniel secured backups. The world had shifted, gossip could not be unwound. But the important part wasn't the gossip. It was that I had created a public record that could not be ignored. I had shown the community the proof. I had shown my son and his wife that their actions now had real witnesses. I had made their greed visible. That night, I sat alone on the little porch of my rental. The air smelled like cut grass and lemon polish. I held the warm cup of tea Ruth made for me. My hands, despite everything, were steady. I thought of all the moments of betrayal, the shove, the words, the quiet planning, and I felt the slow, satisfying hum of a plan working. Exposure had been surgical. People mattered. But I couldn't stop there. Their greed had legal angles, financial angles, and human angles. They could still try to argue diminished capacity, could still say I was imagining things, could still file countersuits. That's why I had one last measure lined up, a meeting at Ryan's workplace. I contacted a former colleague of my husband's, a mild-mannered man named Tom who ran a small local news blog. He wasn't big city press, but he had reach. I asked him to come by the lunchtime shift at Ryan's pilot briefing room under the pretext of a community interest piece. Tom agreed to be discreet. He also agreed to bring a recording device and a camera. The next day, under the pretense of wanting to see the world from my son's shoes, I asked Tom to arrange a meet and greet at the hangar lobby, someplace neutral where Ryan might think he was safe. I told Daniel to bring the original recorder files on a secure drive and asked Ruth to be there as moral support. Claire would be standing by for any legal moves. When Ryan arrived at the hangar that afternoon, the lobby buzzed with pilots and ground crew. He saw me and forced a smile, sure I would back down now that the town had witnessed my frailty. He was wrong. Tom introduced himself as a local reporter and said he wanted to do a short profile on community members. Ryan, eager to prove normalcy, agreed. But Tom was no fool. He steered the conversation gently toward family, toward legacy, toward property. Then, with the casualness of a man who had all day, he asked, "Do you have any advice for families who are worried about property disputes? Have you ever dealt with family pressure?" Ryan's expression flickered. He laughed, short and nervous, and tried to deflect. But Tom, with a small smile, said, "We've had a few stories about elder coercion locally. People don't expect it in their own homes." That was the moment. Daniel set the secure drive on the table between pilot briefing pamphlets, clicked play, and the lobby filled with their own voices. The pilots, men and women who trusted the man to fly them, turned to look. The world Ryan moved through, the professional polished world, was witnessing the private thing he had tried to bury. The look that crossed his face when he realized he was being heard outside the family was priceless. Panic is an ugly thing. He tried to stammer, to laugh it off, to claim it was fake. But the recording was clear. The other pilots exchanged nods, concerned looks. A few stepped toward him. One younger pilot shook his head sadly. "I didn't want blood. I wanted consequence. I wanted the people who had trusted Ryan in the cockpit to know he had once plotted against his mother. Pilots are responsible for lives in the sky, families should be safe on the ground. Responsibility has meaning when we hold people to it." By the time I left the hangar that day, I felt the shape of victory. The town knew. The colleagues knew. And the legal channels were awake. Exposure had become leverage. Now the law and the community would walk with me down the path I had begun. The betrayal had started with a shove and the words "go away." The greedy motive was obvious. They wanted the house, the money, the life they thought they deserved. The shocking twist was the recordings, the exposure, the proof. And now came the final act, justice that couldn't be twisted or denied. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The Monday after the hangar incident, Claire phoned me before I had even finished my coffee. It's happening, Eleanor. The county attorney's office has opened an investigation. They want everything, your notes, the recordings, the documents. This is no longer just family business. It's criminal. Her words washed over me like a tide. For weeks, I had carried the burden alone, like a stone on my chest. Now, at last, the law had taken hold of it. That afternoon, Ruth and Daniel accompanied me to the attorney's office downtown. The lobby smelled of polished floors and printer ink, full of hushed voices and the shuffle of papers. A young investigator named Carla greeted me with a handshake firmer than I expected. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, her tone respectful, "elder coercion is a serious matter. Most people don't come forward. You've done something brave." I slid the folder across the table, thick with transcripts, time scribbled in my handwriting, and the labeled recordings Daniel had saved. Carla played one on a small speaker. Ashley's voice filled the room. "She's too old to figure it out. We'll make her sign. By Christmas, it'll all be ours." The words made me flinch even though I'd heard them countless times. Carla's brows rose, her jaw tightening. "This isn't just greedy. It's predatory. Thank you for documenting everything, Mrs. Hayes. We'll proceed." When I walked out of that office, I wasn't just a betrayed mother anymore. I was a plaintiff. I was someone the law recognized as wronged. That evening, I was on my porch when Ryan appeared at the bottom of the steps. He didn't knock. He didn't smile. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loose, his eyes ringed with sleepless nights. "Mom," he said, voice breaking. "I made a mistake. Ashley," she pushed me, and I went along. "I never should have let it get this far." I looked at him steadily. "You plotted against me. You stood silent when she shoved me. You let her call me selfish, trash, a burden. You wanted me gone." His head fell forward. "I thought we needed it. I thought it was the only way out of our debts." "There were 100 ways you could have asked for help," I told him, my voice flat. "Betrayal was the one you chose. And betrayal is the one that will follow you now." He swallowed hard, his voice cracking. "Will you testify against me?" I didn't blink. "Yes." He recoiled as if I'd struck him. His shoulders sagged, and he turned away. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to call after him. My heart ached, but it no longer broke. Some wounds scar over, they no longer bleed. Weeks blurred into depositions and subpoenas. Investigators interviewed neighbors who had overheard fights, subpoenaed Ashley's cousin about the so-called contractor deal, and pulled phone logs that matched every time-stamped note in my folder. Daniel sat with me through each session, making sure files were backed up. Ruth kept me strong with her presence, her laughter breaking through my nerves when I faltered. Finally, the court date came. The courthouse loomed gray and solemn against the sky. Inside, the benches filled quickly, neighbors, church members, even a few of Ryan's co-workers. Some had heard whispers, others had read the small local blog post Tom had written after the hangar exposure. They came not to take sides but to see truth revealed. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Claire, my hands folded tightly in my lap. Across the aisle sat Ryan and Ashley, their lawyer whispering urgently to them. Ashley wore a navy dress, her hair styled to perfection, her lips painted too bright. Ryan looked gaunt, his eyes bloodshot, his jaw tight. When the judge entered, the room hushed. My heart pounded so loudly I thought others might hear it. Claire opened with calm precision, laying out the facts. "This case is about coercion. It is about a son and his wife conspiring to take property from a woman in her 60s by pressuring her, deceiving her, and planning to make her believe she had no choice. But she did have a choice. And she chose to fight." Then she played the recordings. Ashley's laugh, sharp and greedy, filled the courtroom. Ryan's voice, low and conspiratorial, followed. The words, "Will make her sign. She won't last much longer," echoed off the walls. Gasps rippled through the gallery. A man behind me muttered, "My God." Ashley's lawyer jumped up, objecting, claiming the tapes were fabricated. Daniel, calm as stone, explained how he had authenticated each file, how he'd matched them to phone records. His clear, steady testimony dismantled their defense. Then it was my turn. I stood slowly, steadying myself on the railing. My voice was quiet but firm. They told me to go away. They called me selfish for living in my own home. They plotted to strip everything from me, my house, my money, my dignity. They thought I was too weak to notice, too weak to fight. My eyes found Ryan's. But I am not weak. And I will not be erased. For a moment, the silence was so thick it pressed against my chest. Then the judge nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Hayes. Please be seated. When it was Ashley's turn, her polished mask cracked. It wasn't like that, she cried, her voice shrill. We just wanted to help. We thought she couldn't handle it anymore. She misunderstood. But the tapes betrayed her. The papers betrayed her. Her own words betrayed her. The verdict came swift and final, guilty of attempted coercion, guilty of fraud. Sentences of fines, mandatory counseling, and hundreds of hours of community service. Their reputations were ruined. They would carry that stain for years, maybe forever. As the gavel fell, Ashley burst into tears. Ryan kept his eyes on the floor. I walked out of that courtroom not with joy, but with freedom. The whispers in the gallery weren't about me anymore. They were about them. Life didn't magically return to what it had been. Betrayal leaves scars. But slowly, the shadows receded. Neighbors brought flowers, pies, warm hugs. At church, hands squeezed mine in quiet solidarity. Ruth and I spent long afternoons laughing in my little kitchen. Daniel repaired my old radio, his calm presence reminding me that loyalty still existed. My world was smaller now, but stronger. One warm spring evening, I knelt in my garden, clipping roses that had burst into bloom. The air smelled sweet, heavy with promise. I whispered to James as I cut a single bloom, "You were right to prepare me. You knew this day would come." And I did what I had to. Later that night, I sat in my armchair, the recorder resting on the table beside me like a trophy of survival. The fire crackled, shadows dancing across the walls. I thought of Ashley's shove, Ryan's silence, their greedy dreams. They had tried to write me out of my own story. But instead, they wrote their own downfall. I wasn't gone. I wasn't erased. I was still here, stronger, sharper, and free. And that, I realized with a calm smile, was the sweetest revenge of all.